The porch light clicked on, bright and yellow in the dusk. I was sitting in a rented RV, a plain, dark blue box parked across the street and 2 houses down, disguised as a clumsy neighbor's project. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I hadn't even had time to breathe since the plane ticket was booked. And then they appeared. The front door swung open, and there was William, my husband, or what I thought was my husband. His arm was draped around a slender blonde woman I'd never seen before, Brielle. They weren't sneaking. They were strutting. They paused right where William and I used to share a cup of coffee every Sunday morning. He leaned down and kissed her, a long, deep kiss that didn't hold any of the guilt a man having a quick fling should have. This wasn't a secret. This was a replacement. The pure, cold shock of it made my vision tunnel. Brielle didn't look nervous. She looked smug. She held up a shiny new set of keys to my house and laughed. "The papers are almost final, right, sweetie?" she chirped, the sound muffled through the thick glass of the RV window, but clear as a gunshot in my headphones. I didn't feel hurt. I felt a hot, blinding flash of pure, righteous anger. This wasn't just cheating. This was a hostile takeover. What the hell just happened to her? I thought, forgetting for a second that she was me. I forced myself to breathe. My plane was supposedly halfway over the Atlantic. But I was right here, watching the beginning of the end. The anger was so immediate, so absolute, it was like a physical blow that cleared my head. It cut through the decade of slow, creeping doubt I'd been living with. My name is Audrey. I'm 38 years old, and until 5 minutes ago, I was a successful architect who believed she had a life, a beautiful home I designed, and a marriage that was, at least, stable. The vacation was William's idea. He'd said, "You work too hard, darling. Go find yourself in some remote coastal town. I'll hold down the fort." He'd booked the tickets, watched me pack, and waved me off with a smile that was so big and proud. Now I knew why. He was setting the stage. Looking back, the signs had always been there, just hidden under his charming words. The little comments that made me feel crazy, the subtle gaslighting about my memory, the way he slowly, quietly, took over all the financial accounts, saying I was too busy to worry about them. It all started when, I realized, I stopped trusting my own gut. I looked at my monitors, the little screens I'd set up last week, just in case. They showed every room in the house. I had to know. The camera feed in the living room flicked on, showing William pouring drinks. My stomach clenched. The sound came through the speakers, the expensive pop of a champagne cork. It was the 2005 vintage I'd bought myself after I landed the biggest contract of my career. William and Brielle clinked glasses, not with celebration, but with a toast to me. To Audrey's extended, much-needed, and quite expensive absence, William sneered, taking a large swallow. Brielle giggled, a sharp, unpleasant sound. She really fell for it, didn't she? The whole finding yourself thing. My hands tightened on the steering wheel of the RV. They were celebrating their theft, using my money and my things. Brielle sat on the custom-made sofa I had designed and had been saving up for since college. She was already wearing one of my silk robes, a soft powder blue one I kept in my bedside drawer. "I told my boss I quit," Brielle said, stretching out. "I said I was moving into my fiancé's house. I'm done working for crumbs." I felt the real stakes hit me then. This wasn't a quick affair to satisfy an ego. This was a plan for a whole new life built on the ashes of mine. Brielle was already living in my house, spending my money, and planning a wedding. "Did you finally find the key to the safe?" she asked, her voice dropping. My blood ran cold. The safe. It was hidden behind a painting in my home office. Only I knew the combination, a code based on my deceased mother's birthday. I watched the live feed of my office, a room I'd spent countless late nights in, designing my future. William was kneeling in front of the safe. How did he know the code? Then I remembered. One lonely, drunken anniversary, I'd whispered it to him, a secret meant for only my closest person. He had filed it away, waiting for this day. The click of the lock was sickeningly loud in my headphones. He pulled out a large, heavy envelope. It wasn't jewelry. It was a stack of my most private papers, the deed to the house, the investment portfolio statements, and the internal documents from my architectural firm. Brielle leaned over his shoulder, her finger tracing numbers on a document. The equity on this place is insane, William. She's been sitting on a gold mine. William smiled, a truly ugly, greedy expression. And she was going to sign it all over to me next month, remember? Just a simple transfer to simplify the taxes. Idiot. The word idiot echoed in the small space of the RV. He then walked over to my desk and picked up my work laptop. He was accessing my files. He wasn't just stealing the house. He was stealing my career. I reached for my own small, highly specialized work laptop, my fingers flying over the keys. Being an architect meant having access to powerful, remote systems, and I was grateful for my paranoia about backups. I saw the network login attempt on my firm's server. William was using my credentials. He wasn't subtle. He was downloading massive project files, the blueprints for my entire future. He thinks I'm gone. He thinks I'm helpless. He was wrong. In less than 20 seconds, I changed the security certificate on my account, locking him out completely and wiping the firm's data from his access point. Then, I activated the stealth monitoring program I'd built into his personal laptop's operating system months ago. It was a small, quiet piece of software that logged every email, every search, and every financial transaction. I hadn't used it because I didn't want to know. Now I needed to know. The cold, logical part of my brain took over. I was no longer the betrayed wife. I was a strategist, and my enemy had just tried to breach my fortress. The enemy was careless. He just showed me his weakness. I leaned back, a cold, hard smile on my face. The laptop chimed with an incoming call for William. The name on the screen was Denise. William put Denise on speakerphone in the living room. His sister, the one who always treated me like I was a piece of gum stuck to the bottom of her shoe. I knew it, Billy. Denise's screechy voice filled my headphones. I knew she was too weak to stay. Good riddance. Audrey's gone, and that house is finally ours. The possessive hours grated on me. Denise had always resented my success, my home, and the fact that William had married someone who made more money than he did. Don't celebrate yet, Dee, William replied, sounding smug. I still have to manage the fallout at the firm. She left a mess, of course, but that's what we planned, right? I'll just say she got over her head with the new accounting system. He was framing me. He was going to use my imaginary mental health break and his access to my firm's accounts to make it look like I was the one who mismanaged the funds, paving the way for him to step in and save the company while funneling the real cash away. The dummy accounts are all set up? William asked. Denise confirmed, under a business name nobody will ever trace back to us. Everything is ready, brother. Just file those divorce papers the day you said, and we'll take her for every penny. My breath hitched. This was not just about the house. It was about destroying my life, my reputation, and my livelihood. For the next 3 days, I lived in the RV, fueled by black coffee and righteous fury. I turned from an architect into a forensic accountant. The little monitoring program on William's laptop was feeding me a constant stream of information. I had total control over my remote network, so I could access 10 years of tax filings, bank statements, and legal documents. What I found was a methodical, decade-long plot. William hadn't just been passively spending my money, he had been actively creating a shell of a life for me while building his own financial escape hatch. He'd been siphoning small amounts into his dummy accounts for years, using every trick in the book. Inflated vendor invoices, consulting fees paid to Denise's non-existent company, and claiming fraudulent business expenses. It was slow, patient, and evil. The depth of the planning made my initial anger harden into something cold and useful. I wasn't hurt anymore. I was insulted. How dare he think I am this stupid? I meticulously started a separate, fully encrypted file, the audit. Each transaction, each forged document, each damning text message was labeled, dated, and cross-referenced. I was building a case that no defense attorney could tear down. My concentration was absolute. I only paused when I saw William and Brielle do something truly unforgivable. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and they were in the garage. William and Brielle had an assembly line going, one box labeled donation, another labeled trash. They were emptying the master bedroom closets. I watched, my throat tight, as Brielle casually tossed the hand-stitched quilt my grandmother made me, the one I kept folded at the foot of the bed, into the donation box. It was a sentimental piece, priceless to me, but meaningless to them. Then William held up a framed photo of me and my mother, taken shortly before she passed away. He didn't even look sad. He just shrugged and dropped it straight into the trash bin. "Gotta purge the old life, babe," he said, too loudly, as if he expected me to hear. The casual cruelty was staggering. They weren't just moving in. They were erasing me. They were acting like I was dead, and they were disposing of my insignificant remains. A deep, sick emptiness settled in my stomach. The humiliation of watching my entire life be dismantled by two entitled, arrogant people felt worse than the betrayal itself. I wanted to scream, to run over and snatch the box of memories away from them. But I stayed put. Screaming was what they expected. Silence was what would kill them. The next day brought a new kind of sickening revelation. Brielle was looking through a box of old documents in the hall closet. She pulled out a thick, legal paper. It was the original signed deed for the house, the one that had my name, Audrey, as the sole owner. I had paid the down payment, the mortgage, and all the taxes. "Look at this, William," Brielle called out, sounding annoyed. "It's the original. We can't let this be found. It clearly says her name." William walked over, looking completely unbothered. He took the paper from her hand, laughed dismissively, and without a second of hesitation, tore the original legally binding document into tiny pieces, dropping them into the fireplace. "Relax, baby," he chuckled, lighting a match to the small pile of paper. "That's why I had my lawyer draw up the replacement. It's ready to go. A quick little forged signature that says I'm the owner, and then we file the divorce papers saying she abandoned the house and signed it over." The flames licked at the deed, turning my proof of ownership into ash. My hand was shaking so badly that the coffee in my cup sloshed onto my desk. He had crossed the line from fraud to a felony, forgery. He wasn't just a cheating husband, he was a criminal, and he was getting sloppy with his confidence. I couldn't handle this alone. I needed professionals. The game had just changed completely. I picked up the secure satellite phone I'd brought with me and called the only man I truly trusted, Philip, my longtime family attorney. I didn't tell him I was in an RV across the street. I told him I was in a small town upstate, resting. His voice was calm, a solid anchor in my storm of panic. He listened to the whole story without interrupting, the years of fraud, the surveillance, the forged deed, and William's plan to frame me for financial mismanagement. "Audrey, you are in a very strong position," Philip said, his tone measured. "They think they are talking in a bubble. That is their fatal mistake." He told me exactly what to do. First, I had to secure the last of my liquid assets, moving them into a blind trust he would manage, making them untouchable. Second, and most importantly, we needed to make William confirm his crimes on the audio in a way that left no doubt. "We need to bait him, Audrey. Make him think he has to fix something you messed up." He promised to send me a small package to a discreet P.O. box in the next town over, a specialized, secure recording device and a dedicated burner phone. I hung up the phone feeling the first true relief I'd felt in days. I wasn't fighting a monster. I was preparing a cage for a rat. I waited until William and Brielle were sitting down to watch a movie, loud and distracted. Then, I drove the RV to the P.O. box, collected the small package Philip had sent, and set up the new burner phone. My fingers tapped out a simple, anonymous text message to William's personal number. I kept the language short and technical, like something a panicked accountant would send. Urgent. Audit flag on Q4/Y1. Large transfer discrepancy in the Willow Project account. Must be corrected and rerouted to holding before month-end or tax inquiry triggered. The Willow Project was a defunct job William had handled years ago, a job I had completely forgotten about, which made it the perfect camouflage. My heart pounded as I pressed send. I watched the live feed on my monitor. William's face, which had been relaxed and arrogant, immediately crumpled into a mask of pure fear. He looked instantly pale, his hands shaking as he read the message. Brielle didn't notice. She was too absorbed in the movie. This was the first time I had truly pulled his strings, and the control felt like a surge of electricity. He jumped up and scrambled to find his phone. He looked completely defeated. William didn't wait. He didn't even put his shoes on. He went straight out to the backyard, pacing frantically by the pool, and called Denise. He put her on speakerphone, his voice high-pitched with panic. The specialized device Philip sent was recording every syllable, turning the sound waves into unhackable digital evidence. Did you see the text? The Willow Project is being flagged. Audrey must have been working on it before she left. We need to move the funds. Today. They can't see the cash sitting in the holding account for more than a day or the whole scheme falls apart. Denise's voice was annoyed, but worried. Relax, Billy. It's just an internal flag. Move the 10 grand from the dummy account, you know the one, ARC Securities, back into the main holding, then move it out tomorrow. Just make sure the date on the transfer looks like it happened before she left. The critical information was right there. The name of the dummy account, the exact amount, and the full admission that they were coordinating to falsify dates to cover up their crime. I didn't need any more evidence. This audio, combined with the financial logs I had already compiled, was everything. I gently clicked save on the recording. The smoking gun was secured. As William went back inside, still muttering curses, I saw a car pull into my driveway, a vehicle I recognized instantly. It was Mrs. Albright, one of my longest-standing, most important clients. She was a quiet, proper woman with sharp eyes who ran a large family foundation. She stepped out of her Mercedes, holding a thick folder. I knew exactly what she was dropping off, the final approval for the biggest, most exciting project of my career. William intercepted her at the door, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Albright, what a surprise. Audrey is, unavailable. Mrs. Albright frowned, looking past William at the unfamiliar woman, Brielle, who was leaning in the doorway in my silk robe. I'm just dropping off these final signed contracts for the Civic Center. I need Audrey to start on Monday. William's smile tightened. I can take those. Audrey is actually on a mandatory leave of absence. Burnout, you know. She's been so mentally fragile lately. The firm's finances were just too much for her. I told her she needed a break. Mrs. Albright's eyes narrowed, shifting from William to Brielle and back. She looked deeply concerned, not for my health, but for the lie. She handed over the folder, her hand lingering on the paper. I felt a wave of icy fury. He wasn't just stealing my money, he was assassinating my character and professional reputation in front of a key client. He was trying to dismantle my entire legacy. The public humiliation was a bitter pill to swallow, but I couldn't move yet. I needed to reinforce the illusion of my absence. My absence was the key to his carelessness. I used a pre-scheduled automated email service I had quietly set up weeks ago. William's phone pinged with a notification. It was a sweet, loving email from me, titled, Thinking of You from the Coast. It contained photos I'd taken 3 years ago on a trip to Big Sur, complete with a caption. The waves here remind me of our love, always crashing, but always coming back to shore. Miss you so much, darling. It was vomit-inducing, but highly effective. William showed the email to Brielle, rolling his eyes, but I saw the slight easing of tension in his shoulders. She's fine. She's far away. The plan is safe. They didn't see the tiny details I'd changed in the photo's metadata, making them look like they were taken from a cabin far in the mountains, a final layer of confusion for anyone who might look closely. See, William announced, pulling out a bottle of my best scotch. Drowning her sorrows. We're in the clear. Now, let's finalize the party list. Brielle clapped her hands. A party. At my house. The party was set for the following Saturday. William and Brielle were planning an event so lavish, it had to be a statement. They weren't just moving in, they were staging a coronation. I watched on my screens as they debated the catering menu and the floral arrangements, all charged to my corporate credit card, which I had deliberately left open. It was the last piece of bait. They were going to spend thousands of my dollars to celebrate my humiliation in front of all our mutual friends and, worse, William's own family. Denise was on the phone, cackling about the guest list. Make sure you invite the Hollands, William. They need to see you finally in control of your own life. The arrogance was suffocating. I kept all the surveillance running, capturing every detail of the party preparations, the invitations, the budget, the exact time the guests were scheduled to arrive. This wasn't just my property, it was a crime scene, and I was collecting every piece of evidence. The deeper their sense of victory, the harder their fall would be. And we file the papers on Tuesday, William said to Brielle, wrapping his arm around her. Tuesday morning, everything is final. I'll be the sole owner, the sole director, and she'll be a faded memory. The countdown had begun. Saturday was the party, and Tuesday was the day William planned to walk into the courthouse with the forged documents and the narrative that I was a mentally fragile wife who had abandoned him, signing over everything out of distress. The high emotional stakes of this timeline were nearly paralyzing. I could ruin the party now, burst through the front door and confront them. But that was his fantasy, not mine. He wanted a chaotic scene, a drama where he could play the victim of a crazy woman. My plan was colder, smarter, and irreversible. It needed precision. I drove the RV to a new, discreet spot, a small, quiet street near the local courthouse. I couldn't risk being seen, not now, just days before the checkmate. I was a ghost in my own life. While flipping through channels on the RV's small TV, I caught the local news. The headline was startling. City councilman under investigation for shady land deals. I leaned forward, recognizing the blurry face on the screen. It was Mr. Thornton, Brielle's father. I watched the news report with laser-like focus. Mr. Thornton, a minor, well-connected city councilman, was being investigated for accepting kickbacks in exchange for approving questionable construction bids years ago. The report mentioned a specific period and a particular type of building project. A cold, calculating idea began to form in my mind. William had worked on several construction bids during that exact time period. I remembered him coming home, stressed and secretive years ago, always telling me to ignore the petty politics of his projects. Now, my mind clicked. I cross-referenced the names mentioned in the news report with the old, archived project files on my work computer. There it was, a complex set of payoff schedules, cash envelopes, and revised invoices, all designed to disguise illegal payments. William had acted as the middleman, burying the illicit funds in my firm's legitimate projects. He was not just connected to Brielle's father, he was an accomplice in a much larger and much more serious crime. This was my leverage, the unexpected twist the narcissist never sees coming. His own past was about to deliver the justice he thought he could escape. The counter-framing had to be perfect. This wasn't revenge. This was justice delivered through the hands of the federal government. I called Philip, my attorney, again. I have something that connects William to Brielle's father's scandal, I told him, keeping my voice low and steady. It's a set of old, compromised construction bids and payment schedules. Wire fraud, conspiracy, maybe even money laundering. It's federal, Philip, not local divorce court. Philip understood immediately. He instructed me to package the documents, all copies, of course, and place them in a manila envelope. I then, using the RV's tiny printer, created an anonymous cover letter, suggesting the evidence was found when an old storage unit was cleared out. The letter directed the recipient to the federal prosecutor's office, not the local police. Philip would then have a trusted, discreet associate drop the package anonymously. I was widening the net, ensuring that even if the divorce court favored William's forged documents, the government would already be building a case that would make the house, the money, and the firm utterly irrelevant. The tension was almost unbearable. That afternoon, William received an unexpected formal letter delivered by a courier. William tore open the sealed envelope, his eyes scanning the formal document. He dropped his phone. "A subpoena? For my construction records from 8 years ago," he shouted, running a frantic hand through his hair. Brielle, who was filing her nails, looked up, annoyed. "What is it, William? Is it about Dad?" He didn't answer. He was spiraling. "It's Audrey. It has to be. She left the books a mess when she ran off. They must have found something in her files. That stupid, incompetent woman." His narcissistic need to blame me, the victim, for his own years of crime was astonishing. Instead of taking the subpoena as a warning to stop, his arrogance made him double down. "This is it. I can't wait until Tuesday. We have to file the divorce and the property claim today. I need to get rid of her name and her messes. I need to be the sole signatory on everything before they dig any deeper." He was panicking and, in doing so, he made the fatal error. He was accelerating his fraudulent plan, ensuring he would be caught red-handed. I watched him on the screen, his face twisted with rage and fear, and I felt a wave of icy calm wash over me. The trap was about to spring. The final hours were dedicated to precision. I drove the RV to a friend's vacant condo near the courthouse. I didn't want to be in the RV when the storm broke. I sat at a clean desk, my hands steady. I meticulously transferred every piece of evidence onto a secure, encrypted drive. The audio recordings of William and Denise discussing the dummy accounts, the financial audit showing the siphon money, the time-stamped video of William shredding the original deed, and the copies of the federal construction bids. This was my proof, my liberation, and his undoing. I held the small drive in my hand, a piece of plastic that held 10 years of my life and his downfall. It felt incredibly heavy. I dressed carefully, not in the clothes of a victim, but in the sharp, professional attire of an executive. I put on a tailored navy suit, the kind that demanded respect. I looked in the mirror, and the woman staring back wasn't the scared, gaslit wife anymore. She was Audrey, the architect. I watched the camera feed one last time. William, dressed in a cheap suit, grabbed the envelope containing his forged papers. He adjusted his tie, kissed Brielle a triumphant goodbye, and walked out the front door, heading toward the courthouse. I arrived at the coffee shop across the street from the county courthouse 10 minutes later. I ordered a black coffee and sat by the window, my back straight. I didn't need to be close, but I needed to see it. I needed to witness the moment his world fractured. About 15 minutes later, I saw them. William and Brielle, walking hand in hand up the grand marble steps of the courthouse. They were smiling, practically glowing with self-congratulation. They were walking into a temple of justice to commit a serious felony. The irony was sweet, a slow-release poison in my gut. They disappeared inside. I pulled out my burner phone. I sent a final anonymous text to the number Philip had given me for the federal prosecutor's chief investigator. He is filing the forged property documents now. The evidence packet is waiting for you at Philip's office. I didn't wait for a reply. I finished my coffee, the bitterness perfectly matching the moment. William thought he was walking in to secure his fortune. He was, in reality, walking into the closing of his own trap. I saw two plain black sedans pull up quietly near the entrance. I kept my eyes glued to the courthouse doors. I knew Philip's timeline was precise. While William was inside presenting the forged, fraudulent papers to the local family court clerk, Philip, my rock-solid lawyer, was walking into the federal prosecutor's office downtown. He was handing over the secure drive, the audio, the financial logs, and the evidence connecting William to the deeper, federal crimes of wire fraud and conspiracy. The local charge of forgery would be nothing compared to what the federal government wanted. Moments later, the large doors of the courthouse swung open. William and Brielle emerged, William's face a picture of smug relief, a look of complete, self-satisfied victory. He reached out to hug Brielle. "It's done, baby," he must have said. "It's all ours." But then, just as he was basking in his assumed win, a woman in a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit, flanked by two men, approached him quickly. She was clearly not a part of the courthouse staff. The suited woman presented a formal document to William. It was a search warrant and an arrest warrant. She spoke clearly, her voice sharp and official. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. The look on William's face told the whole story. The smug, triumphant expression evaporated, replaced by one of absolute, pure terror and disbelief. He stammered, pointing frantically at the building he had just exited. "This is a mistake. My wife," she filed. The officer didn't care about his wife. They were here for federal crimes. The two men moved quickly, efficiently. I watched them place William's hands behind his back. The cold, shiny handcuffs clicked into place. Brielle started screaming, a high, panicked noise, demanding to know what was happening. The female agent simply detained her as an accessory, reading her rights with cold, detached professionalism. William was fighting, yelling, pointing. His body language shifted from arrogance to a writhing animal caught in a snare. This was the moment of poetic justice. He lost everything not because of me, but because of his own greed and his arrogance in committing high-level crimes. William, now in custody, was being led down the steps toward one of the black sedans. His eyes were wide, darting, searching for any reason, any way out. And then his eyes locked onto mine. He saw me, sitting across the street, in a professional suit, not the tearful, broken wife he expected. My face was calm. I didn't look hateful or triumphant. I just looked like a woman with all the facts. In that moment, the pure realization of the depth of the trap, the fact that I had been watching, building this case against him for months, hit him. His face contorted. He screamed my name, "Audrey!" It was a sound full of rage, betrayal, and absolute loss. He struggled against the officers, trying to get to me, to demand an explanation, a final word. But I gave him nothing. I simply picked up my briefcase, placed a tip for the waitress, and without breaking eye contact for a final, deliberate second, I turned my back. I walked away from the coffee shop, from the courthouse, and from the screaming ghost of my husband, toward the future I had just fought to reclaim. I didn't need to speak. My silence was the most powerful statement of all. 6 months passed. The house, the beautiful structure I had poured my heart into, had been sold. I hadn't stepped inside it again. The memories, the hidden cameras, the sheer violation of the space made it toxic. It was a place of the past, and I was moving forward. The sale had finalized the assets, and because William was now facing serious prison time, his name was easily removed from all legal documents, thanks to the federal charges and the irrefutable evidence. He was completely cut off, unable to contact me, unable to use my name. My firm was thriving. I had cleaned house, firing the few people William had pulled into his schemes, and I had regained the trust of clients like Mrs. Albright by calmly showing them the truth. I had started a new project, a small, modern home built on a cliff overlooking the ocean, a project for myself this time. I sat on the balcony of my new, smaller apartment, looking out at the vastness of the water. William had tried to gaslight me, to make me feel small, incompetent, and disposable. But his wickedness had only forced me to become stronger, smarter, and colder than he could have ever imagined. The revenge wasn't the arrest. The revenge was the peace I felt now. The true takeaway, the one I carry with me every day, is simple. The moment you realize your worth is non-negotiable, your fear of losing a manipulator fades, and your power returns. I was finally, truly free. If you've made it this far, you understand, respect is non-negotiable. My worth was never defined by William's charming lies, Denise's seating chart, or who my so-called family chose to believe first. My story proves that silence can be a weapon, and patience can be power when facing down narcissism. If this resonated with you, if you've ever been gaslit into invisibility, share it. Tell them, your silence doesn't make you weak, it means you're observing. Your boundaries don't make you difficult, they protect your peace. Your survival and your strategic rise make you extraordinary. Because the revolution happens when you decide to write your own ending. Your worth was never in question. It was only ever waiting to be remembered. Have you ever had to prove your worth to a family that underestimated you? Share your story in the comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe.